Welcome to Healing Beyond the Trauma. My name is Megan Alves. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this podcast, I want to break the stigma around mental health and have real, unfiltered conversations about healing. Some stories are going to be raw, even triggering at times, but they're real and they're honest because healing starts with honesty. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying it all, you're not. Here, you're going to gain validation, practical tools, and a new perspective to move forward. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. So let's dive in. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Summit. And it's all about overcoming obstacles and talking about conversations that we don't get to talk about on a daily basis. So I'm here to break some stigmas, but today I am really excited to introduce Sam, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I am just so grateful to spend some time with you and get to know you even more. Sam, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's talk a little bit about this wellness event first.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me, Megan. It is truly a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. I am a 3-time cervical cancer survivor, and I have just turned my experience into advocacy. So much of being a patient, being a cancer patient, being a woman navigating the healthcare system requires a lot of self-advocacy, and I've spent a lot of time learning a lot. So these days, I'm sharing what I've learned. I am so excited to do that with you at this summit. And you just talked about these personal, raw conversations, and I agree, we're not having them enough. So this is the perfect opportunity to do that. There's so much to learn from honesty, from the real things that we go through in life. Not so much the highlight reel, which our accomplishments are important too.
They are.
But I think it's so important to recognize that it takes like every bit of the journey to learn, to grow, and to heal. And
Yeah.
I do think that that is something that we're all needing more of these days.
I could not have said it better, and I could not agree more with you. And I really want to highlight that what you're saying, this wellness event that's happening on May 1st, put together by some powerhouse women. And we have come together as a community. And I really want to celebrate the fact that the women that are speaking at this event, we have only known about this event for a very short period of time, and we all just said yes. The excitement in that room, I remember our first call together, which was only maybe less than a month ago, that each of these women are bringing to this event. I cannot wait to be in that room with
100%.
women just like you,
Yeah.
sharing their stories, giving us real education. I mean, we have professionals in the space. We have, for yourself, you're an advocacy. You are a digital storyteller. I can't wait to learn from you and all the women in this room on May
Same.
1st.
Same. I'm so looking forward to connecting and just replenishing. I think we have a way, even digitally, we have a way of just having these conversations, like giving each other energy and ideas and inspiration. And you're right. There's something for everybody. It's really, really exciting. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
I know.
And
I'm a hugger, so I hope I can give you
yes,
guys like
yes, me
all
too. Me
a huge hug.
too. Yay.
Fill
Yeah,
my
let's
cup.
be awesome.
So as we talk about this event and that we're so excited about, I want to shift a little bit to learn about you and just the obstacles that you've gone through. You and I, before I hit record, said, well, and I think I said it, but we said, when it comes to being a woman in any type of medical system, we could probably spend this entire podcast talking about the importance and learning how to advocate for our health, to learn how to navigate the healthcare system for ourselves. So, bring us in to your journey and kind of walk us through how you learned how to navigate this system from diagnosis to treatment, if you don't mind filling us
Yeah,
in.
it's no problem. It's so true, unfortunately,
Yeah.
that it's inevitable. It's inevitable that we will struggle to have to get the care that we need and we deserve. And I knew that that was true pretty early in my journey. I was first diagnosed at 27 with cervical cancer. I had an abnormal pap, and through, like, as it usually is, a sort of like merry-go-round of doctors and appointments and let's try this procedure. Um, Ultimately, the doctor that I saw wanted to give me some time for a procedure to do its thing. And unfortunately, I think being 27, health wasn't my top priority, and I kind of let it fall to the wayside. And ultimately, received my first diagnosis,
Yeah.
and I was treated with, a radical hysterectomy, and, going through that in itself was a big thing at 27, and,
Yeah.
a lot of introspection on my part on myself as a person and how I was going to navigate the rest of this journey, being a survivor so young. I had a lot of things to think about. With that
Yeah.
being said, and unfortunately, about 2.5 years later, I would have my first recurrence, and I would spend a whole year in treatment and had a variety of treatments. Um, and by the end of that year, I thought I was in the clear. um, I had a clean bill of health. Everything was good at that point, and a few months later, I would have my second recurrence. And, um, at that point, my care team just didn't have any more options for me, and that forced my husband and I to travel out of state to get life-saving care. I had a extreme surgery, but that is what allowed me to be here today and share my story. And unfortunately, part of that story also was, particularly with my first recurrence, I ran into a lot of dismissal, and it kind of blows
Mm.
my mind looking back at it, just thinking at that point, I even had a history of cervical cancer already.
Yeah.
Um, so unfortunately, I think that does speak to where, women navigating healthcare are,
Yeah.
um, what we face. And I hope for people watching, it
Yeah.
shows them how important it is to speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
It took me going to the ER myself because I had gone through months and months of misdiagnoses and, no, it's that's not what it is. Cancer is not what it is. And finally I said, okay, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to the ER. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And that's how I found out that the cancer came back the first time.
Thank you for sharing all of that, and I can only imagine just having so much hope. You said you were at clear and then it came back, and then you were at that clear and it came back. And then even through those moments, still having dismissal.
Honestly, that emotionally it had been the toughest part, was
Yeah.
to know in my body that there was something deeply, deeply wrong, and to do the best that I could in that moment to push for myself and still be met with that resistance, uh,
Yeah.
forcing me to sort of question my own connection with my body, my own um like interpretation of what was going on
Yeah.
with myself. It really does. do a number on your mental health for sure. I struggled a lot. Nonetheless, though, I knew there was just something in me that knew I had to fight like my life depended on it because it did.
It really did, yeah. Tell us a little bit, as those dismissals were coming in, I can only imagine, you're saying it was a toll on your mental health, it was a toll on your intuition and the trust in yourself, which tanks confidence. We know that. So, how did you find yourself after those dismissals, after the reoccurrence? What were some of the things that you noticed navigating to help yourself continue to fight for your life?
Honestly,
Yep.
I was mad. I was
Yeah.
I was I was just so fed up. I was so frustrated and angry that I had gotten to this place, that I had allowed, um like, the outside world to sort of influence how I felt about myself,
Yeah.
how I navigated the entire situation, and just looking back at that, I thought, "No, no, I am
Yeah.
going to just I'm gonna take this back. This is my life, this is my health. I have a voice, and I'm going to use it because if I didn't, I would ultimately have a completely different outcome, and that's why I think it's so important for women to recognize the same, and I can only hope that it doesn't take, such a serious crisis to get to this point, or to,
Yeah.
feel so angry and feel so, frustrated at the journey. My hope now is to just continue sharing and have women recognize that, like, we very much have the agency to follow our intuition and to have tough conversations even when they're uncomfortable, even when
Yeah.
they're messy.
And
It's
know that you're worthy enough,
100
right? And,
100%.
oftentimes, especially in the clinical world, I remember when, I was like a baby therapist and I had clients coming in and they're like, I just want to work on my anger. There's always a root to the anger. And sometimes it's not always a bad thing, right? Like that part of you that was angry was like, I'm angry and I'm going to make sure that something changes with this. When it becomes a detriment is that I'm angry and I'm going to just succumb to what comes my way. And we do, all of us have that choice that anger can fuel us and help us continue to drive and prove wrong or continue to prove our worth in the face of adversity or succumb to it. And so it really is like how to choose those paths because I know for those listening is I know that it could be more comfortable and I'm going to put that in air quotes for those not watching. It could be more comfortable to step down and just let that anger eat you up and not advocate for yourself because it is exhausting and it does take such an emotional, physical, mental, spiritual toll to continue to fight.
Yeah.
So, for those listening that maybe that anger has put out the flame rather than put the log to the flame to help fight, what would be your words of advice or if you've had those moments that you felt, like that flame went out inside of you, what would you say to those listening to help ignite that fight or in what direction?
Yeah, this is such important perspective that you bring up and such a great question. The first thing that came to mind, and you touched on it a little bit, is that there's a ton of shame attached to our emotions in general. We're never allowed to express them, we're not allowed to have them.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I completely let go of. Being
Mm.
in I will acknowledge being in survivor mode, it's hard to have control over that. Um, so that part was just like the
There's
raw
a big piece of that puzzle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but also I just realized that, I this is something I have to do. I have to get through. And I am not going to hold myself back in any way. And a part of not holding yourself back as a person as a whole is just allowing yourself to feel those feelings and not have all those attachments with them. And that
Mhm.
absolutely, as you know, in your field is way easier said than
But
done.
yeah,
So yes, it took a lot of intentional work. I went to therapy. I
yeah,
did a lot of somatic work.
yeah,
And then, I would allow myself to be angry and let myself channel that energy. I knew it
yeah.
was gonna exist anyway, and why not use it? I'm gonna use it to keep moving myself forward
Mm.
and, allow myself to change it. I think we are often taught a lot to be afraid of change, and, that's another thing I had to, like, really reckon with, that I can't be afraid of changing anymore because my life was just already changing and I had
Upside
absolutely
down.
control over it.
Yeah.
So I would say those are the biggest pieces of advice, is to let go of that shame, of that societal expectation for you to
Mm.
be, like, just perfect and all good.
Everything's fine.
No, because it's not, and it's not
Right.
gonna be. That's how life is.
Yeah.
And change is a big part of life too. So just
Yeah.
try to embrace it. And it's not always gonna be great and pretty and tied up in a little bow, but embrace it
Yeah.
anyway, because there's a lot to take away from every experience.
Right. And you said as you were going through this, the somatic and the therapy work. For those listening, and those terms might be new to them, can you give us an overview of what helped and what somatic work was for you and what through therapy helped you during that time?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I feel like I've experienced the like wide range of therapies, and I'm grateful for that too, because I think every different part of it has been helpful in a different way and has like sort of addressed a different need for myself and my recovery and my healing.
Yeah.
Um the things that come to mind are EMDR was like completely life-changing for me,
Yeah.
to be able to sort of confront things that, I didn't even realize had shaped me so much, and
Right.
to be able to process that was very powerful. And then, my therapist also did a lot of somatic work. She was a yoga instructor, and
Beautiful.
she combined the 2, and in that point in my life, it really opened my eyes to the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I know in my own personal
Right.
experience, it was one or the other, and
Right.
we are conditioned almost to only focus on our physical health.
Mhm.
Um, Once I started doing this work and seeing the results of, like, being able to process in my mind and then also process in my body and
Yeah.
do this yoga at the same time and be able to really, like, release these emotions, I I've never looked back. Like,
Right.
I'm always thinking about the mind-body connection and how to best serve myself as a human being, and,
I love
yeah,
that.
it's such an important part of our health that I think goes overlooked for so many people, and then for
Yeah.
women especially, because we are such feeling
We're
beings.
complex.
We
We
are
really are.
all of our needs
Yeah.
addressed, and those
Yeah.
2 are truly, like, they truly are the foundation of
Yeah.
our health. So it's really important for me to get, like, those needs met and do that work so that I could be open to embracing life again, because it's not as easy as, like, "Okay, I'm not in cancer treatment anymore, cool." I I was a completely different person. Life looked completely different.
Your body was managing different.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
and I often, kind of mention body keeps a score, because it's such a, pronounced, researched topic
Mhm.
that we have some really solid evidence on, and you just touched base on that, on the somatic and the body and, brain experience in and
Mm.
of itself, that and how important it is that we understand how our body feels through those emotions and be able to process. And oh my gosh, the choice of letting go of things that we weren't sure that we were holding on to. I mean, I will always be a proponent of therapy, obviously, but to hear it explained in that way, I, I get so excited because I know the importance of those together, and to hear you be able to have that experience, be open to that experience, and then to say, I won't look back. Like that is just going to be a part of your story moving forward. And that's how change gets created even in tough circumstances, is what I'm hearing you say. And you mentioned now through this experience of, the whole body connection that you experienced, you mentioned in the beginning, you said, and I'm not quoting you, I didn't get the exact words, but you said, I let my health go. And that's when I got my first diagnosis. What did that mean that you let your health go?
Um, I'm trying to think back at what I said. Um,
You said it just wasn't top of priority for you
oh,
before those diagnoses,
yeah.
right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you for jogging my memory. Yeah, I was 27. I was engaged. We were planning a wedding, and I think just as many young people do and young women, I was just very focused on getting my life together. And I put that in quotes because it looks different for everybody. And
Yeah.
at the time, though, I felt like this is what I need to be doing. I need to be focusing on my career and focusing on building my life.
Yeah.
And then going through this opened my eyes to seeing that our health is our life. I can't have a successful career. I can't be present for the people that I love. I can't go after all of my dreams if I'm not healthy.
Yeah.
So that was a really important shift for me, and again, something that I'm not ever going to look back on. I know how important my health is now. I pretty much my whole everything I do, I think about my health really, and it has been amazing for me.
What are some of those? I tend to call them seeds, right? Like I think of our life as a garden sometimes. So I often use this analogy that, before this diagnosis, maybe for you, maybe, you let some of the weeds just kind of pile up, and health wasn't the priority. So if you were to say the seeds that were planted through this journey, what are some of the most important seeds that you've planted for your health that you continue to maintain, that you feel has been a big payoff through this for you?
Oh my gosh, so many.
That's a loaded question.
So many things that have been growing in my garden in these last few years. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but knowing my worth is
Mm,
absolute. Probably number one. Knowing that I'm worthy of pursuing care for myself. I'm
yeah,
worthy of speaking up and letting people know how I feel. I'm worthy of unconditional love. Um,
yeah,
that's something you learn, seeing yourself change, seeing your body change, your ability change. Worth has been a huge part of this journey, and expression also at the same time.
mm,
I think that we don't give ourselves enough freedom um, to be open. We talked a
mhm,
lot about that. It's hard
yeah.
to be vulnerable and like put yourself out there, but that part of my journey has been honestly probably the most remarkable.
Yeah.
By being vulnerable, I've met amazing people like yourself, like
Well,
the
yes.
women that are all coming together to do this summit. I've met amazing fellow survivors,
Mm.
and it really just allows you to connect with people on a real human level that we're just not doing enough of. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I love how you mentioned that that vulnerability has allowed you to make bigger connections. You know, I I would often hear, like when we talk about the highlight reel and things like that, and when those finally choose to be vulnerable rather than hiding or not using their voice, is it actually feels like a weight has been lifted because they can be and they've learned how to be their more authentic self. Does that feel like something that resonates for you?
100%. You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
I You just jogged my memory back to being, like, in the thick of treatment, being a patient and feeling so isolated,
Mm.
and I know that just not seeing this honesty, these conversations, I ended up putting a lot of pressure on myself. I ended up comparing myself to other people, and ultimately, that doesn't help anybody. In fact, it was harming me. And
Yeah.
so, I am just reminded that I thought to myself, like, when I get to the other side of this, like, I just wanna be open. I just wanna be honest and to be that representation for someone who's in the thick of it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's a powerful thing to sort of see your journey, see your perspective in someone else's story. So that's why I
Mhm.
think vulnerability is huge.
Yeah, and just, and I think when we learn how to become vulnerable, w this has obviously been a huge turning point in your life. Let me rewind before I ask this question. What would what would be, I guess I wanna say, a permission to yourself to be vulnerable? If somebody is telling themselves right now, like, their protective parts, as I would venture to say, is showing up and saying, "You must show up with, everything's fine, and I am tough, so I can't show emotions," or whatever the ego might be saying too. What would be a foundation, and how would you support somebody or help them advocate for having a more vulnerable side if it just feels like a block at this moment, if somebody's struggling through this?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. Shout out to you and all the therapists out there because that is truly the work that has allowed me to really get in touch with me, with the
Yes.
person that I am. Yeah, and
Learning yourself more,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's natural to have that block because we are again, sort of told to feel that way. And of course, it's going to pop up. We're just trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And as cheesy as that sounds, that was part of my process. I had to sort of talk to myself and coddle that part of me that was feeling like, no, well, no, I can't let anybody see that.
Mhm.
I can't not be strong and not be doing all the things.
Yeah.
Um, I think just having that honest introspection with yourself, that
Mhm.
almost a conversation with yourself.
Yeah, and all these
Really im
parts of us that tend to show up, like you said, wanting to show up as, like, the strong person all the time, or wanting to show up as the one that has it all together all the time, or the one that shows up, and I'm just speaking this from so many stories I've heard. And if I push too hard against what the medical experts are saying, that means that I'm not trusting in this system or that I can't trust people. But all of those, to be said, and you said in your garden, the one of the biggest seeds that were planted is to know your worth and trust yourself. And
Mhm.
that's really hard for some of us to do. And I think it's through experiences and through support that that starts to open up the comfort level because it's not comfortable. I put that in air quotes. We're using some air quotes today.
Oh, yeah.
It's not comfortable to learn about ourselves sometimes. It's not comfortable to face somebody and have them tell us, like, okay, hold on, think about that. Where'd that come from? Right? Like that is heavy, hard work on top of healing. And so I want to take a moment and just honor that you showed up for yourself in such a big way to heal those parts that were showing up through a journey of pure fight. And you even mentioned it in pure survival mode.
Yeah, it is not easy. It's messy. It
Yeah.
it is messy. It's ugly, and I would say that that is part of the advice too, is to just be okay with it
Mhm.
being all of those things. It's not pleasant, um, but I absolutely know that it's worth it, to, like, confront those things. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to,
No.
um, like, see that mirror and
Yeah.
that, like, "Okay, maybe I'm not doing so great. Maybe I do need to change some things." It's hard. It
Yeah.
hurts. Um
But that mirror, I think, to your story and so many stories I've heard, um, is that being able to look at that mirror when you first start this healing journey and this fight, I would venture to say that that mirror looking back at you today is so different because you know your worth.
Mm, it's so true. It is true.
Dang
It's
it!
it's so powerful. Yeah.
Yes. So let me ask you, as we kind of wrap up some of some of your story, and you have so much story to tell, and this platform, we can be on here because your story needs to be shared and your story needs to be heard because not just for women, and I want to really like emphasize we're talking to women just because it's a season that we're in to support women right now, but we're also talking to the men out there who are going through this struggle. And we know that it is just as hard in our medical system for them as well. And so I want to put that out there because, you know, it isn't as Sam just said, is this isn't something to do alone. That although we can be strong and mighty and these amazing capable humans, when life gives us such an experience to fight for, which is literally fighting for your life, is we're not meant to do this alone. And
Mm.
so you called in therapist, I mean, your therapist, thankfully, shout out to your therapist because I love that, it was like yoga instructor, therapist, somatic, EMDR. Um, and then would you say that community is really important through this journey as well? And how did you maintain that?
100%. Community might have been the strongest, like, turning point for me,
Mm,
especially living in so much isolation for
yeah,
so long. As a cancer patient, you kind of have to, like, quarantine, your body's
right.
weaker, so I spent a lot of time at home. I ended up losing my job and
Mm,
was just completely on my own. And as you know, in your line of work, like, that's not a great place to be mentally.
no.
Um, you end up, I guess, like, thinking to yourself a lot, and that can spiral. And so sharing my story has allowed me to build that community and make those connections and see for myself that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I know people who have felt the way that I do and vice versa, and that is a really beautiful experience to have, to know
Yeah.
that there are people just like you who are working towards something similar and have been through, again, something similar and really, really get it. Like, you don't have to defend yourself or
Mhm.
explain yourself.
Over-explain just to
Mhm.
make sure that you understand that I'm strong enough to handle whatever, right?
Yeah. You can just
Yeah.
really appreciate your journey, appreciate theirs, and the people that you've become, the people that you are. Um, yeah, I was able to maintain that, I think, a little bit better once I started getting into recovery.
Yeah.
I also meant to mention that, like, I was in treatment during the pandemic, and so, like,
Mhm.
isolation was my life for years. And it was a
Gosh.
really hard thing to break out of. I was, as you said, I was overthinking everything. I was afraid to go outside. I felt incredibly socially awkward.
Yeah.
Um,
So I would venture to say you had to flex some muscles
I did.
that went dormant for a
Yes.
minute.
I had to go to, like, social gym and
Yes.
helping flex those muscles, whether it was, Zoom, support groups or,
Yeah.
something that I leaned into a lot, and I still do to this day, is volunteering. Just finding
Yes.
something that lit that fire that spoke to me. These days, it's a lot of cancer advocacy organizations, patient advocacy, but to be able to do something, find something that I really care about, and again, find people who feel the same way as I do,
Yeah.
that really helped me like turn the page
I
and
love that you
yeah,
mentioned that.
find the new person that I was now.
Yeah. Well, and to plug another amazing book is Man's Search for Meaning. And the bottom line of this book, and when I worked in psychiatric work, that book grew legs probably on a weekly because it's such a small book, but it's such a powerful book because it's all about purpose. And when we lose purpose, we lose so much of ourselves. And so I really, really love that you touched on that, and thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and the fight and the flame that you have in you to continue to be this survivor and be, this voice for so many that aren't quite ready or not sure how to keep this flame going. I'm just so thankful for the work that you're doing. And as we wrap that up, tell us where we can find you. Where are you on social media? What are you doing? How can we reach out to you and learn more about your story?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for giving me the space, for letting me be me and all of your guests.
Thank
Just
you.
this conversation was a pleasure and I know that it's important for people to hear. So thank you and thank you for all the work that you're doing as well. Um,
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah.
yeah, we're each changing the world. uh,
As much as we can. Dang it.
Yeah, exactly. I am on Instagram and TikTok under Go Sam Grow. And these days, I am taking all of these things that we're talking about actually and putting it into my baby, which is Evergrow Healing Co. It's a nonprofit that I just got off the ground. And it was born from my experience of knowing that navigating health and healing is isolating and
Yeah.
we needed more community and honestly it needs to be more fun. um
Yes. Let's
yeah.
have fun. I love that.
Yeah. So you can find me on either of those accounts. Evergrow HCO is the social account for the organization, and we are going to be having events, community events, where
Perfect.
we can express ourselves and learn about our health, our mental health, and taking care of ourselves, and really connecting with our fellow human beings here. So I'm excited to to connect with others. I'm excited to keep learning and keep sharing. Um, and yeah, just continuing to grow.
Yeah, I love that, and I will make sure to link all of those in the show notes, so for those of you listening, please make sure to give her a follow and see her story, continue to stay in the loop with all the events, and thank you again. It was so nice to spend time with you, and I can't wait to hug you this weekend.
Yes, me too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you gained what you needed to hear today. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about the strength of moving forward. If today's episode resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone you love, because when we share with love, we help to break the stigma together. If you want to connect with me and learn more about what we're doing over at Mental Summit to break these stigmas, please connect with me over at mymentalsummit.com. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep going together, and remember you're not alone in this.